So yeah, let's jump straight into it. What is agorism?
So this is a complicated question because it's not really an area that many people have researched or showed interest in historically. Agorism, it's associated with a guy called Samuel Konkin III. So he died in 2004, just to situate him a little bit historically. And there isn't a huge amount of information about him at all. And I don't mean just online, I mean even in books. So he's a fringe figure. He lived in a place called the Anarcho Village, which is this science fiction commune in California. He influenced a few science fiction writers in the 80s. And then he has this very patchy online record. He has like a LinkedIn profile, which just says that he does publishing in some vague way. And he produced these three books, or they're sort of half books, half pamphlets. So one is called The New Libertarian Manifesto from 1980. That's the only book that's published in his lifetime. And then he wrote two books, which were then put together by his friend Victor Coleman in the sort of 2008 and 2018. So that's Agorist Primer and Counter Economics. So there's a book called Radicals for Capitalism, which is this 800-page book of about American libertarianism. And Konkin is mentioned 3 times in this book, right? So that will give you a sense of his status. And I would say he almost could be a forgotten historical figure completely, except for the fact that for some obscure reason, when we don't know how this person found Konkin, but the person who found Konkin is Ross Ulbricht. So Ross Ulbricht, the creator of Silk Road, the darknet marketplace, he, for some reason, found Konkin and tried to get people on Silk Road to read his book. So that's how I came across him, and I found it fascinating that this major figure in cryptocurrency history had an interest in agorism. So that's how I sort of began the journey. Now, he's an interesting character because his books are intentionally not systematic. So we're not talking about huge volumes. We're not talking about lots of complicated libertarian analysis. He's maybe similar to someone like Hakim Bey, a little bit more controlled, where it is, I don't know, he's not concerned about his, appealing to the mainstream libertarian audience. So the general thrust of it is very direct, which is just that agorism is the promotion of black market activity. So the message that he's promoting is that black market activity is a net good, and another way that he puts this is counter economics. So he talks about the idea of counter economics, where you're doing any kind of activity, any kind of black market or gray market activity, which is effectively running counter or not sanctioned by the state. And he sees this as a way to express your truer non-statist self. So he's encouraging people to reject their internalized statism, the way that they follow, say, the rules of the economy. So he basically says that most rules are, related to the economy. It's like a Marxist sort of strain in there, perhaps. But generally speaking, yeah, his idea is that you should engage in this kind of counter-economic activity. So if it takes place beyond the state and it's non-violent, then Konkin is for it. So in his work, he'll praise U.S. libertarians, the people you would expect, the right libertarians, the Bitcoiners that we would see today, like the American flag, the guns, the whole lot. But he also supported things like the WTO riots in Seattle. So he had a broad view on this. He really would support anybody that was opposed to anybody engaging in illegal activity. He also tries to encourage consciousness raising around people who are already engaged in counter-economic activity. So people who are already, let's say, like naturally inclined in that direction. He supports, those people learning that the counter-economic activity they're engaged in is actually like the good as opposed to the bad as they've come to accept. So there's a little bit of a prefigurative aspect to it. So, live as if you're already free is a big part of his thinking. And then the formal definition that he gives in the book, I think it's the Agorist Primer, it's the consistent integration of libertarian theory with counter-economic practice. So an agorist is one who acts consistently for freedom and in freedom. So he accepts more or less all the basic ideals of traditional libertarianism, so like voluntarism, non-violence, pro-market, socially permissive, anti-state, anti-war. So all that bucket is in place. So beyond, like with his theory is effectively just libertarianism, the standard libertarianism, but then he's just got this unique focus of saying that if you believe in that theory and you're not living in the non-state, off-the-grid, true libertarian or true anarchist life, then you cannot consider yourself an authentic libertarian. And his books are, I guess in today's context, you might even say he's trolling the libertarians by living this life, because he did live that life. He was very much off-grid and never worked any sort of official jobs. And so he's trying to show the hypocrisy. And then the other part of it, and again, right, he's not a super systematic thinking, it's more almost playful and creative. There is this interesting part, however, where he imagines the way in which if we encourage counter-economic activity and zones of counter-economic activity, like temporary autonomous zones, any part of the society that's, you know, attempting to live beyond the regulations of the state, that we should encourage the creation and development of these zones so that they undermine what he calls the contiguous territory of the state. So the state has its territory, and then there are these zones. He talks about ghettos, like his word, so places that can't be governed, to try and encourage the expansion of these places until they basically meet up, you know. So it's almost like a science fiction vision of this counter-economic spaces which eat away at the territory of the state. Now, the part that I think Ross Ulbricht probably would have been interested in is that the way in which this is going to be brought about is through groups called the New Libertarian Alliances. So these are associations of entrepreneurs for liberty for the purpose of specializing, coordinating, and delivering libertarian activities. So you have this idea of groups of libertarians will get together. They will operate and coordinate and try to bring about, counter-economic zones. So trying to expand that. And then they disband at will, and they sort of come and they go. And to me, this is where I begin to see like a little bit of crypto in there. You know, to me, this sounds very much like a DAO, like a decentralized autonomous organization. So a group of people get together for some specific purpose. They expand the range of counter-economic activity, which is what I see crypto effectively as. And then beyond that, yeah, it really just after that, he just gets very science fiction-y. So he straight up just begins describing something that hasn't happened, which is he imagines the growth of these zones, and then how the state goes through these terminal crises as people look at the authentic people living in the counter-economic world, and they get drawn over, and then eventually like the state collapses, you know. So that's as far as he gets. So in summary, and I know I've kind of given a bit there, but he doesn't get much time, so I guess I might as well give him a bit of space. So it's the promotion of black market activity. That's the main thing. Valorizes counter-economics as an expression of our true selves outside the state's watchful eye, which we've internalized. Promotes the widening of the counter-economic participation. So that's sort of the main, I guess, politics of it, to expand the zones until the contiguous territory of the state is eroded by these autonomous zones. And then eventually, this is maybe the Marxist, I often see little parallels with Marx in his work, that if counter-economics, like if all the zones met up, like counter-economics would disappear because it would just become economics, and that would be the agora. So the agora is the point where the counter-economics supersedes the economics.